to death. You don't work yourself to death, too, in the process.
And in terms of that clarity, I know that sometimes during the season, like if I've been working with someone and I think it's completely clear, because I've read the play and I understand what's going on, and then he takes a look at it and he's like, what is that? Or where did that come from? And then I know the backstory of where it came from, but in the cutting it's not clear. So, just doing a reality check on clarity is not a bad move at all. So, with that said, we're going to talk about analysis of material. So that's the second thing that's in the packet. This is the one that I've kind of whittled down, and this is the only one where I gave you more notes because that lecture in itself could be an hour. When we talk with the kids about it and we do it that long. But I wanted to really, in terms of empowering kids, this is the easiest thing for them to want to skip. They don't really want to do this. They want to get up and perform. It's kind of like everybody on your team wants to be an actor, and you know full well that some of them should be in public address. Just like almost everybody that's a freshman thinks they're funny. And you have to convince them that maybe that serious side of them is really where their strength is. So, the analysis is where they lose it, and that's the ground floor of understanding. So, why do you do it? It's to make choices. The first one is to actually create the character on the outside. If you help them understand, you aren't just reading the play to figure out the theme. You are reading the play or the selection to actually understand who that character is on the outside. And we're going to show you some skill builders that we do to find out, posture, voice, facial expressions, mannerisms, all those things that you pick up from it. But we also want to be able to create the character from the inside. It's not just who it is on the outside. And I honestly think a lot of kids and coaches do a great job of working on the outside, making the characters distinct and very physical or vocally different. But the inside is where you lose some of the depth of the characters. And humor characters can still be funny and more deep. They don't have to be superficial. They can be very real. Actually, what you laugh at the most, if you even on comedies, I think about shows on TV that are really funny. I laugh at them because they remind me of someone that I know in a family or friend. I mean, when there's that hint of reality that you're like, oh my gosh, that's like my Aunt Ginger. And that's when it makes it really real. So these are the reasons that we do it, is to create the character on the outside and the inside. So we call this understand and innerstand. The understand is who they are on the outside, even more so when you read for that, and the innerstand is just a made-up word. The innerstand is who you are on the inside. And I would have them approach the literature with trying to figure both of those out. Now, with that said, it says right on the handout that obviously another reason to analyze this is to get the overall theme and message. We're not ignoring that because I think that empowers the student when they're performing. But the point we're trying to make here is for characterization, you have to know who they are on the outside and the inside. So, in terms of inner stand, this is where you are having motivations, the overall moment, and the particular moment. So we're going to hopefully see, we have little things we can pull in and out depending on how long our time is, but we have a drama cutting a little bit later that we were going to show you. So just to kind of set that up a little bit, it's a student who's doing a piece called White People. And John wanted to do something that was making a social statement. And so the overall point of the piece was him trying to reconcile his feelings as a character about a race of people given an incident that he had had, and how he should not classify all people based on individual instances. And so that's the overall objective for this teacher who has to come to terms with that. But there are particular moments in there where there's other objectives, where you see in the beginning of the cutting, which we'd only be showing the end, but just to kind of set up, where he's going, I don't even know if I like being a teacher anymore. Because kids come into my class and I don't really think they really appreciate what I'm doing. I don't know if anybody even cares that I'm here. I'm just a teacher up here talking. So there's a moment in the beginning, he's not worried at that part in the piece that he's reconciling race issues. He's worried about, I'm completely lost. I don't even know if I should be here anymore. What difference am I making for kids and people? So have kids look at not just the overall motivation, but the particular one. Relationships too, I think kids are really quick to do literal ones. Like this piece is about a son and a mom. But the difference is it's really about a son who resents the fact that his mom won't let him be the person he wants to be. And they have to go beyond that. It's not just a piece about a husband and a wife who are getting divorced. It's about a husband who wants to stay married and the wife who wants out. So help them dig a little bit into what the conflict actually is. Then in terms of feelings, we wanted to point out 3 things that we think are often underappreciated in cuttings and in performances. I read a great book a long time ago, and if you haven't ever read it, called The Audition by Michael Shurtleff. It's a wonderful book, and it's given to people for acting. But they have in there 10 guideposts that actors should think about when they're auditioning for pieces. It's also got some great stories about Barbra Streisand auditioning and early in her life and things that she did. So there's anecdotal stories. But kids who really love acting, it's the easiest book that I've ever been able to show a student to read it. And in there, they reminded that there is love in just about every story. Because love is the most basic human instinct, and you need to find the love. So even if the husband and wife aren't getting along, it's because that love relationship is strained. But it's not about the fight, it's about the loss of love. Likewise, there's humor in everything. I think that's something that I see as a mistake in a lot of cuttings, is they're so heavy, there's no comic relief. You know, Shakespeare would bring in comic relief in all that tragedy all the time. I would encourage kids to look for the moments that can make you laugh, because a cutting flaw in my mind is when I am sad and upset as a listener from point A all the way to point Z in the cutting. I'm exhausted by the time I'm done. I need a little relief. So if you can find that, I'm not saying make it up, but if there's a way they could deliver that line, completely side different note, but I watch Rizzoli and Isles. Did any of you ever watch that TV show? And right now, that one of the characters on there, she makes so many, between the two of them, she makes so many lines that if I were to read them on the paper, I wouldn't think it is, but it's because they have this relationship, and they'll, you know, she'll mock Mara a little bit by what she says, and it makes me laugh, and I'm thinking, after how many seasons that's finally developed, because their friendship, it could be a tense line, like, Mara, you're always so straight about all the things you have to do, you know, and she's like, oh, you know, and she'll mock her, but in a friendly way. And I feel like that's how they bring humor out. And then the last one is hope. We're big believers that there's got to be some hope, I think, in a cutting for your kids. If you can leave an audience with that there's hope for change, your judge will feel better and the kid will feel better. There's a lot of cuttings that, because of the way they're shaped, there's no hope for it. And in the cutting with John that you'll see, seeing the transformation, if you don't take the cutting to the point where he changes his views, it is a downer, and you leave bitter and upset. It's in the play, and this is actually one section of the play, but it's finding the hope, and that is a great thing. People love to leave inspired and moved because, like I said, we all love a little hope and love. And so if you can find those in the cutting and steer kids, because honestly, kids always want drama. You know, it's got to be serious, every social issue, every calamity in the world. It's just so depressing. And, you know, if you can help them to get the other emotions, that's great. The last one is I think, in terms of totality, again, we're great on the outside, but not the inside. What is the character thinking? I have to see the wheels turning before the line comes out. Too many kids want to say the words without thinking why the kid is saying the words. They don't know the memory that's happening. So in that husband and wife divorce scene, she might be confronting him, but she's remembering what he did when she's saying it that has gotten to this point. And that memory is what's motivating the thoughts. But they're just going to say the lines that they're angry, and it might really be hurt. Because how could you do that to me? And you're remembering that memory. And then the sensations. That's the other one that I think is often missed by kids. And by that I mean the senses. What they can see, hear, taste, touch. And in a performance, when they're combing the script for them, you have to know, like we did, there was one of the plays we did where it was like super hot. And I remember the person starting out and just looking like it was a really hot day. and then starting by setting the scene. What are you going to do to use the senses? And in the humor that we're going to show you in a little bit, I mean, there's a moment where there's taste going on, there's moments where the senses come alive. If you have poetry, as a judge, I really look for people who can make language come alive by appealing to my senses. Make me feel, as a judge, what you are tasting, touching, seeing, hearing, all of that. Those are kind of, I think, things that will help. So here's the activities that we offer you in this area. I'm just going to point them out. At the bottom of the first section about understand and understand, in terms of at the bottom, we offered you options for kids to be able to deal with understanding, and being a big believer that there's learning styles for all kinds of kids. I mean, I love to intellectualize things. That's the debate coach in me. But I found that sometimes you have to teach to other people's strengths to understand things. So there are ways to talk out the understanding, there are ways to write out the understanding, and there are ways to act out the understanding. So there's a couple of those listed. On the next page at the bottom, there are ones also in terms of the understanding. Again, the first two deal with verbalizing, and the last one deals with physicalizing. So some kids could read it on the paper and try to take notes, but until you actually ask them to paraphrase the story, to act out an improvisation, they may never really get it under their skin. And then you can watch it in a different way and see. So those are some, and they love doing that anyhow. It's a lot more fun than just saying, take a piece of paper and take a lot of notes and tell me what you think. But the last one on that particular part is number 3, which is what I call the fill in the blank exercise. So the first two that I mentioned here are the understanding and understanding. Not everything is in a script, and you need to make some creative choices that are consistent with the material. But they love this one, that's number 3, about creating details. It might not say in the script what the person's favorite food is, or favorite song, or economic background, or childhood idol, but it begins to flesh the characters out, and they become much more real. So this is a fun activity for them to see that they can bring depth to the character, that it's not just on the surface. The last one is a worksheet that we've used, that we do pass out, that allows them to intellectualize a little bit more. That's characterization profile activity. And they can go through and do physically what the person looks like, but then they can talk about mannerisms. If you know the person is super nervous, I mean, maybe there is going to be the fidgets that happen, the twitches that happen, the little mannerisms that might occur. So they can go right through that sheet and be able to fill that out. So those are the activities that we think will help with the understanding and the understanding, with the analysis. And then Joe now is going to get, oh, I guess we're going to set up HI a little bit. You want to set up Joe's HI so we can show it, and then we'll do that?
Yeah, you're going to show it now?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. We want to tell him give him the scenario for Joe.
Yeah, this part coming up here is the part I get excited about. Because you say, well, that's great, Joe Pam, you've given us this cerebral stuff and so forth that we can think about. Well, don't ever mistake this comment. Folks, you've got to be smart to do this activity. Kids have to be smart to do this activity. This is holistic. And so when we're talking about, in order for you to, before you want to stand up and do the piece, you maybe should have read the play. Do you know what's for kids? They don't, what are you talking about? Don't you just have the cutting? No, I'm a teacher. You're going to read the whole damn play, or else you don't know the dynamics that are taking place. And so, no, you read the entire play. And so, when we're talking about all this other stuff, it's like you have to do the groundwork first. And now we're going to talk about how do you do it.
Now give me one comment. Tell him about Jim Skeffington for not reading a play.
Yeah, Jim Skeffington, great kid, very successful. He was doing Days of Wine and Roses. How many of you read Days of Wine and Roses? It's about, it's an old play. Okay, so Pam is, and I've read it. But it's a story about this really two alcoholics who get together, and the husband is still drinking, the wife stops, they have a child, but anyway, he's still drinking, and Jim didn't want to read, the whole play, because let's just get to the drama, one of these things, and he was a very talented actor. Well, there is a line where he's gonna interview, like for a job or something, and the character is talking, and he's lost weight because he's been drinking and not eating, and and he's nervous, and he says, oh my God, I have to get myself ready. I need a belt. Well, he needs a drink, right? So Jim comes out, he's doing it for me, and he's saying, oh, I'm so nervous for this interview. God, I need a belt. I said, what are you doing? Well, his pants are falling down because he said, no, that's not what that means. If you had read in the context, you would have understood that the line means something else. So when you have 16-year-old kids telling you things like that, that's when you think, you know what, you might want to make a better choice. Also, every 16-year-old kid thinks that they're funny, especially when their audience is other 16-year-old kids, because they will laugh at the most perverted things that you can find in the play. And that's why you have to say, now this is just me, once again, I don't want to get off on a tangent, although you can tell that I could. There are things that are in a play. One of the greatest plays I've read and seen is Clybourne Park. There are sections of Clybourne Park that I think that's the most phenomenal writing that I've heard because of the previous work, that I had read. I knew what Clybourne Park was taking off on, but there are parts in Clybourne Park that my high school kids aren't going to do. And it's not because good Lord, I'm not. It's because I don't think that's appropriate for a high school kid to do. This is not off Broadway. If you're off Broadway, you're in some, that's a different, but if I'm with your mom and dad, and we're in the theater, and I'm watching you on stage, and I'm your teacher, instructor, I better be proud of what I'm seeing, as opposed to I really want to kind of get away because there's a section coming up that I don't know that I would be real comfortable with. And so I think, once again, as a coach, we have to be careful about what we allow kids overall to do. This kid that you're going to be seeing here now, this is Joe Paulzine. I want you to watch this. I hope that we would have time to watch it 2 times for a reason. 1, to enjoy. 2, as instruction. But we're going to come back to, how did he do that? That's going to go into the physicalization of characterization, okay? So make sure you're right now where you can see the screen. We're not going to play the whole thing, are we?
No.
Okay.
No,
all right.
and the idea here is he's going to talk about how we went through to plan the characters physically for this. This is about the understanding physically, vocally, all of that sort of thing. So this will give you at least a context to make the decision. Once again, everybody cross your fingers, because every time I use technology, it freaks me out. So let's just hope it plays and see if it
Now this is a humor, so you
No,
can't
it
watch.
didn't. Okay, back it up. Let's see here. It's supposed to just, Dustin. Can you like just click the clicker in the back right there? We can